Harrison Griffiths, the political commentator with Young Voices UK, is here. Harry, good morning.
Good morning, Rosie. How are you?
I'm well. This WhatsApp set of allegations and screenshots that have been published, first of all by the Mail on Sunday yesterday, and then extensively reported in the other papers today. You just think, if you had those views, it's utterly stupid to write them down and share them and make jokes and make light of it and think there were going to be no repercussions.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, beyond that, commentary on any of the particular sentiments, some of which were really rather unpleasant. I think it's always misguided to start putting these things on WhatsApps, as the person who was previously on said. You just can't assume that anything that you do say is going to stay within the confines of that group chat. And particularly when you've got a larger group of people. If it's 3 or 4 people, that's one thing, but if it's a much larger group, that's another. I just can't really understand it myself.
The challenge is how you actually, what do you do to prevent something like that happening? Because, the messages taking place on WhatsApp doesn't change the fact that the person holds those views or thinks those jokes are appropriate.
Yeah, I don't really think WhatsApp is the problem here. I mean, this could just as easily have been sent over any other type of platform. I think the problem is the people who say these things and what that means in terms of making a moral judgment on them. I mean, if people want to say those things, then they should suffer the social and political consequences thereof. If they don't want that, then they shouldn't be saying it at all.
I expect there'll be other people potentially nervous, as we are sort of hearing from what the papers are reporting, that more screenshots may be revealed later on this week. We'll see, sadly, a horrible story to watch. Front page of the Telegraph, something that is making people very angry and upset. Nigel Farage says the true cost to Britain of Keir Starmer's Chagos Islands deal is actually £52 billion. How did he come up with that figure?
Yeah, so Farage assumed that if you have a 90 million a year payment for 99 years, which comes to £8.9 billion, and you index that to 3% inflation per year over the 99 years, you do end up with about 52 billion. Now, it makes some assumptions about the deal that haven't necessarily been confirmed. Inflation running at 3% per year might be a little high. That could be the totals come out very differently depending if inflation falls slightly under target or above target. So subject to a lot of assumptions, as you would, but it's not a completely unreasonable set of assumptions. And if this thing ends up costing £52 billion to the UK taxpayer, only adds, I think, to the already clear mountain of evidence that this is a pretty rotten deal for the UK taxpayer and for the UK's long-term strategic status.
Well, Nigel Farage said over the weekend, some speculated, you might have read this, it would mean 18 billion. Did you read that? It's wrong. And I think what this story demonstrates to us, Harrison, is actually the ability of Nigel Farage to capture and create PR in a story that lends to his political narrative in a way that Keir Starmer doesn't seem able.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair to Starmer, I mean, it's an advantage of being in opposition. Is that you don't really have to be dealing with the day-to-day realities of policy making, the day-to-day realities of government. When you are in opposition, you can, and of course should be, it's your function. You should be, sitting down and coming up with different permutations of what the policy outcome could be. And as I said, these aren't a crazy set of assumptions that this deal will be paid over 99 years, that 3% inflation over those 99 years, could reasonably kick in. And, to be fair to Farage, this probably isn't one of the more outlandish numbers he's come up with to make his point and get a headline. I think it's a, perfectly possible outcome.
Possible, but as you've said, based on an awful lot of speculation, which Nigel Farage has sort of slightly admitted. As I said, Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader of Reform, is going to be on breakfast just after 8 o'clock, so I'm sure we'll ask him about that then. Fly tipping. Baroness Farsi's got a potential solution for this. She says, this is of course the former Conservative Party chair, she says, littering is so bad that we need more serious deterrence and fly tippers could get points on their driving licences. Do you think it's a sensible idea?
Yeah, I don't think it's such a bad idea, but I think it maybe slightly avoids one of the key problems, really, which is a lack of detection. So I've grown up in a semi-rural area for most of my life. I've also lived in parts of London where you see a lot of fly tipping. And it seems to me in rural areas, fly tippers know where to do the job without getting caught. And when the police eventually catch up with them and, install cameras or police presence around fly tipping hotspots, they just move on to the next one. And I think what we should really be talking about is improving detection here. So, for example, lots of this stuff gets thrown onto private property, particularly the private property of farmers. You could have a situation where fines are funneled to private property owners to compensate them, thus incentivising property owners not just to protect their own property, but with the prospect of successful fines being funneled back to them as compensation, which might incentivise them to take their own action to install cameras near fly tipping hotspots, for example. In parts of London on like industrial estates and whatnot, where people are fly tipping, I really can't understand. It's one of the most surveilled cities in the world, for better or worse. Are people really finding so many places to chuck their rubbish without getting caught? I really can't understand it, to be honest. So I think it kind of it misses the woods with the trees a little bit, in that I think the problem is detection rather than the severity of punishments. We could talk about that for a long time, but first let's actually catch the people who are doing it, because I don't think that's really happening at the moment.
Yeah, I remember doing a live television report with Nick Ellaby, who does the sports news often on this programme. This was sometime last year ago, a breakfast television programme I was presenting, and Nick was reporting live on fly tipping from a fly tipping hotspot, and someone had turned up to fly tip while Nick was there. I mean, people have been brazen about this because there are no concerns, it seems to have, from the people who are doing it, and this was sort of industrial waste. It wasn't someone sort of chucking a sofa or a fridge, as you often think. There's no concerns from these people because they think, well, I can get away with this scot-free. Who is going to follow up on this and find me? It seems to just be a free-for-all.
Yeah, it does, and I think it's part of a broader problem at the moment of law enforcement not really, whether it's through lack of resources, which to be honest I doubt, but really lack of prioritisation and lack of willingness to tackle some of the big problems that people talk about and that are genuinely affecting people's lives and environments. So it's not a lack of law on this. I think there's a lack of serious action to try and stop it.
Donald Trump's been making lots of significant policy. Last month, he was talking to UK politicians about the Chagos Islands and saying, demand that Britain delay its decision to hand them back to Mauritius. He's obviously introduced lots of tariffs. Also, again, just in the last few hours, his comments on Gaza. However, he's also turned his attention to culture as well. And one of the sort of leading cultural institutions in America, in Washington, this is the John F. Kennedy Center. Donald Trump said he's sacking board members there. He's appointing himself as chairman to usher in what he describes as a golden age in arts and culture. So how's it going to change?
Well, one of the things that he said that's particularly caught the headlines here is that he's going to be banning drag shows at the Kennedy Center. And I mean, the announcement of him appointing himself is just the most Trump thing ever. At my direction, we're going to make the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. great again. We will soon announce the new board with an amazing chairman, Donald J. Trump. I mean, referring to himself in the third person, it's just perfect Trump stuff. But yeah, I mean, he's coming in there, and I think it's very intentional that he's appointed himself to this particular role, because culture and expression has been at the heart of the American culture war about what types of cultural output people consume and people want to see. There is a really, really clear difference between left and right in that regard. But I think this is a cautionary tale, to be honest, about what happens when government gets more and more involved in something like the arts, which of course is highly subjective. We all have different tastes. We all want to see different things. And the John F. Kennedy Center is a relatively small government involvement in arts, but I think it shows you that having more government funding of the arts, having more government, therefore more government editorial direction in art, is a problem. Because do you really want, if you're somebody who enjoys watching drag shows and funny things like that, do you really want that to be changing every 4 or 5 years, depending on the whims of the electoral cycle, I don't think you do, because a lot of people are going to look at this and say, well, here's Trump just making headlines out of the latest moral panic about drag queens that isn't really part of a broader issue.
Yes.
And lots of conservatives would have been saying over the last 4 years, why are we having drag shows at the federally funded John F. Kennedy Centre? That's a ridiculous thing. I think that everybody should be allowed to go and watch whatever they want and pay for whatever they want, and that the government probably shouldn't be telling people what to do.
And maybe let demand and ticket prices determine what should be put on rather than the president. But he's the new chairman of the John F. Kennedy Centre. In terms of entertainment, we should mention very quickly, in The Sun, a newspaper that prides itself on its puns, they're reporting on the UK Pun Championships that are being held in Leicester today. I am someone who absolutely groans at a pun. But Harrison, tell me some of your favourite ones that The Sun have picked out today.
I mean, I think these are absolutely fantastic. Do love a good pun. Florists are always excellent here. Austin Flowers, one of the best ones I've ever heard. I don't think it's on here, is Florist Gump. I enjoy that one.
That's good,
Father Ted, a tyre shop paying homage to Father Ted. Tick a Chance on Me, an Indian street food stall in Manchester. Apocalypse Cow, a barbecue street food in Birmingham. And Darth Vapor, I really enjoyed that one. It's vape shop in Bridgend in Glamorgan. Great stuff, and good luck to everybody. I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah, the paper says innuendos and double entendres have been making us groan and chuckle for years. Well, the best ones will be on display today. Harrison, thank you so much. Harrison Griffiths going through the papers with me, the political commentator with Young Voices UK. It's 5:30.